Nerd Skool is a member of the Queen City Podcast Network.
Hey, fellows. It's the first night of 11 of the season.
Nerds roll. Nerds roll.
Oh, my glasses are broken.
This will begin season 2 of Nerd Skool.
Welcome back to season 2, Nerd High. Glad to have you back.
It's gonna be crazy stunts. We're gonna there's gonna be stunts.
Joe's gonna
fireworks.
bring more penis jokes.
A lot of penis stuff.
I am a super nerd.
The Nerd Skool Podcast.
Starring Andy,
Star Spangled Band with a plan.
Maybe I'll try to do a cartwheel.
TBJ.
Welcome. Congratulations. You did dirt. Ta-da. I ain't got no shame. All my exes can tune in. We can have an episode where I compare them to all the Marvel villains. We can do that.
Art Star.
I don't love Wiener.
I'm just trying to make money.
Lord Artemis Prime rises.
Yeah, my real name is Joe. Did I ever tell you about the time I hung out with DMC at Mertz?
The Nerd Skool Podcast.
We weren't recording when we were talking about that Andy just had a colonoscopy. And found
Great,
three
Joe. I'm sure
action figures.
Andy wanted the whole audience to know that
He does.
he just.
Well, he's an advocate. He wants everybody to make sure they get their colonoscopy.
You can do that without telling everyone he just went to have one. We can be advocates without telling all your business.
I had stuff up my butt for medical reasons. That should
And
be.
to the audience, there's nothing wrong with you.
We need Art Stars like low bass, bass line to sing that song. And then
And you got your butt stuff with Transformer.
and then Andy take the high part.
I had Transformers up my butt.
And then
This is how we
TBJ comes in with the
spiral.
scat.
There's no scat. There's just Tiffany going. Mm-mm.
You don't
Well,
scat
after you drink
TBJ?
the fluid, there was plenty of scat.
Oh.
And this is how we spiral out of control.
And this is how we enter the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes, that's a good segue. It's the Guardians of the Galaxy episode.
That is right.
The first Guardians of the Galaxy episode, because if the amount of info I have from taking notes, this is one I couldn't wait for answers from you guys. I couldn't wait. I fell down a rabbit hole. I Googled everybody. I need to know who all these characters were. So I've got a lot of information, and then I'll let you guys.
Are you just going to teach the class this time?
I
No,
might,
are we
like-
just gonna hand it over to you and you teach and we go,
It's not that good of information because I found a little bit, and then each time I was like, all right, that's all I need to know. I'll let them fill in the real stuff.
I'm
But I
gonna
did
be
find-
yeah,
go
I'm
ahead.
gonna be a student a little bit too, because I think I told you guys previously, Guardians of the Galaxy was just not my jam.
It wasn't a lot of people's jams for a while. Just the
Rewatching
publication
it, I was
history.
like,
I mean,
is
the
this my
movie,
jam?
yes.
The movie wasn't my jam either. I've not cared about. I mean, I care about Gamora, and that's about it. That's like girl power. I think we go through this when I see a badass woman.
Was that Zoe?
Yeah.
Zoe Saldana.
Zoe Saldana. What was she known before this? Wasn't there something
You've
big?
seen her all over the place.
I mean, it seems like I knew her face, but I couldn't
Yeah.
place where.
Colombiana.
What's that?
Columbia.
Colombiana, how you want to pronounce it.
Colombiana, which there was a.
I don't know.
I only remember that because there was a big moment in the trailer. I never saw the film, but she was like, "My parents were killed in front of me," and then like a big tear thing. And then
you would have seen her Avatar.
Oh,
Yeah,
Avatar. That's the big
That
one,
would have been
probably.
what
Yeah,
you probably remember her face. from
yes.
the most. I mean, she's done plenty, but that's what.
Was
you
she a
would-
blue person?
she was a blue person, so
Yeah.
you wouldn't
She was
remember
the-
that particular face.
So did she? Do you think they saw her in that and were like, well, she makes a good, pastel. So we'll have her
Add a
green.
add a little yellow to her.
Yeah,
She's done a lot of things. I mean, her resume is pretty decent. So
I feel like I know her from some. I guess I
Star
should look that up,
Trek, you would have known her from
Oh,
Star
but-
Trek.
Yeah, never
Yeah,
mind.
she played Uhura in the Star Trek reboot.
Oh, she did.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
think I did see one of those.
She did one of the Pirates of the Caribbean.
I think I
Oh,
did.
that's
Seen her
why.
there.
That's what I know. I watched all of those during the pandemic. All the Pirates of the
Okay.
Caribbean.
I think those are. I'm sure she's done some other things, but those are the bigger things you would have known
Yeah.
her or seen her. Joe would
Is there
have been like,
is there any hot goss red carpet goss from her, like any dating superstars, Scientology?
No, she's married. She's married with like kids. Like she's just living a normal life when she's not on screen. There have been no like controversy that I've seen recently.
Before we really super delve into this Guardians of the Galaxy,
Yeah.
I just want to know if TBJ wants to give out the hot gas that she was excited about for the past weekend.
Well, I was excited, but then I read some like blind items and then I got really mad. So to the whole world, Jason Momoa is now single.
Oh yes, they broke up. I actually thought of you guys in this podcast.
Right. I was like so excited and I was like, let me get word on the street on his character. And I've just too many cheating rumors were out there. Too many to not one of them be accurate. And I was like, well,
are you sure you weren't involved in that though?
No, I don't mess with married men.
Not even Jason Momoa?
No, listen,
not even
if that was the case, Hemsworth and I would have been booed up a long time ago. No. When they are married, I support their marriages. I'm all about their marriages. I'm like, yes, you and your little wife and your little family. Like Hemsworth is always doing things with his wife and his kids on his Instagram. I'm like, yes, sir. Look at that cute family. But if he is ever single, I'm gonna be like, yes.
I was surprised.
So I was hyped the day of, like, oop, here's your shot. And then I was like, let me dig deep. And I was like, never mind.
It is cheating.
Yeah, like
you can't cheat on Lisa Bonet.
A little bit. It was a lot of it. It was lots of blind items on him, and I was like, dang, sir. And you know what? I won't even call it cheating because he could be like Will Smith and Jada Smith and actually have an open marriage that they just don't talk about.
Yeah,
that's possible. That's possible, but no thanks.
I just couldn't believe that they had been married for 15 years. I was like,
they've been together for a hot
15 years. I just found out about it on this podcast.
Really?
Yeah. I had no idea he was married to Lisa Bonet.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about Lisa Bonet since
he saw her at like a party or something, and he was like, her. Like he worked hard to get her, and here we are in divorce world.
Yeah, poor Lisa Bonet. But that means she's available to anyone on the Nerd School podcast to start dating if she's open to it.
I mean, I can be like, what's up to her too.
Art Star.
We probably get along better.
Would you?
No, we have plans for Art Star.
We do?
Marriage. Yeah, you and Art Star.
Right.
Andy, I don't know if you were.
We can have
married off. Art and Joe.
Well, Art and I are gonna have an open marriage, reasonable. And we're both
now a couple.
I'll be able to be with Lisa Bonet.
And Joe is going to take Art Star's last name. So
yeah, Joe Star.
He's all about
that. Play a lot of video games, a lot of GTA. He's got a lot of high five and a lot of hot dogs.
A lot of holding hands and skipping through meadows.
A real sausage party is what that's going to be. All right, but let's can we jump now the hot gossip out of the way? Let's jump into this, directed by James Gunn from St. Louis. And my wife knows his whole family. She knows Matt Gunn and Sean Gunn.
Who doesn't your wife not know at this point?
Well, I've mentioned this about 12 times on the podcast. She's got a picture on Facebook of her and Sean Gunn is the one who's in
plays Kraglin.
But I guess she was closest with Matt Gunn, who I don't know if he has anything to do with
Not that I'm aware of.
There's another brother named Matt, but she knew James Gunn. But so my wife went to an all-girls school in St. Louis. Dang it, I can't remember the name of it. But anyway, so the boys at the nearby Catholic school, all boys school, and the girls would hang out. So those boys all went to that school, and she went to that. So they'd go to proms and stuff together.
Tell her to get us the plug into Marvel Studios. I'm just trying to get in there one time.
That's like you telling her we're working like idiots. Why aren't we in Guardians of the Galaxy? But then James Gunn was canceled for a little bit, right? So he got canceled from doing the future Guardians of the Galaxy because he tweeted homophobic things or something.
No, what happened was years before, and this was known by Disney before they hired him. He worked for a company called Troma, which made like the Toxic Avenger and like they're like all these movies that are like they the whole idea is to be John Waters kind of, maybe not John Waters level, but like just schlock, like cheesy, gross exploitation horror. Like there's an element of like edgelordery, as they call it these days,
Right.
where it's like everyone's really into just like the pushing the boundaries of good taste and like we're proud to be tasteless kind of thing. And he worked for them, and he made some tweets along those lines that were meant as jokes, like, but just completely tasteless, gross jokes that don't. And someone dug them up because he's also pretty politically vocal on his Twitter. And then someone, of course, looking to discredit him, went back into his Twitter history and dug out some stuff that was of that time and of what his job was at the time. And he had apologized for that stuff beforehand, but then when it got, and Disney was aware of it and they hired him anyway, but then it started trending again because someone dug it up and said, this guy is gross. Because I think it was some kind of like, I don't remember the exact tweet, but I think it was some sort of tasteless pedophilia joke. And then it became a big thing where Disney like immediately went, and fired him. And then,
which they are quick to do sometimes.
Batista, I think, went to bat very vocally for him because, he owes the guy a career.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people like kind of realized like this was a gross thing he said, but he's apologized twice now for it. And obviously he didn't mean it. This is what trauma is. If you're familiar at all with trauma films and what they do and how they truck and crass, tasteless, silly, over the top.
I'd imagine it would be like if somebody was a writer for Andrew Dice Clay in the 80s, and then now they're have some career, and then like, oh, you wrote all these jokes with Andrew Dice Clay, and it's like that was because I don't know what trauma is, so I'm just trying to like imagine, like trying to understand what it would be like. Somebody like that who just told like tasteless stuff.
Yeah, I mean, but it wasn't necessarily like that kind of like misogyny.
Oh,
kind of tasteless. It was trauma does
but
more.
You said pedophile, like it was like.
So, yeah, some kind of really gross joke that wouldn't fly.
Yeah, but I just read he got recently had liked a tweet that was in support of Josh Whedon, who we know is problematic. So,
but I
he's on
think
the list of problems.
Yeah, but I think like that was a tweet that happened right at just when all the news started breaking about him, and like there were still like they didn't get to have the full story yet, but they just knew the friend they knew. And I don't think that was a recent tweet that he liked, but because it was Alan Tudyk who
it better not be a recent ass tweet. Come on.
No, I think it was right in the height of it, right as accusations started coming out, and like who would have thought this? Because he was Nerd King Joss Whedon, and then he was the feminist icon, and like these because like I don't know if this is true, and then it's all true.
Yep.
It's all gross. So I don't know if he said anything retracting that or whatever, but I think
I do feel like I've heard of James Gunn a lot late. Like they
fired him
from it. He's been rehired or something.
They fired him for a while, and in that period of time, instead of working on Guardians 3, he did the Suicide Squad movie.
Okay.
And is currently doing the Peacemaker series on HBO Max.
Oh, I was going to ask you guys about the Peacemaker series.
If it's a spinoff of the Suicide Squad movie that James Gunn did.
Oh, okay.
And it's ridiculous and silly and weird.
It's John Cena.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Art Star, do you love John Cena?
I don't love John Cena, but I love the Peacemaker series.
Yeah, it's pretty good and ridiculous and fun.
I saw a commercial. It looks good, but I have no idea. That's a comic too.
Book? I don't know a hell of a lot about Peacemaker. If we do an episode on that, I'll research him some more. But I had never heard of him until he showed up in the Suicide Squad movie.
Art Star probably does.
I didn't. I mean, not too much.
And I think
it's funny because I think we was talking, me and Andy or you were talking about like Vigilante in the show. Like I remember Vigilante more than I remember Peacemaker. And Vigilante is just like a side character in this show. So,
I could swear there's a Vigilante who's also like a cowboy from like the past. Like But there's always multiple people.
Oh,
with
I remember
a
you
name.
guys talking about. Yeah, okay. There's just so much. I can't believe how much comic book stuff there is now. It's like this. I can't keep up, man. I
It's
want to
its
get
own
into.
world.
I can't keep up. I haven't been keeping up lately.
Insane. I watched the
But-
first Daredevil, the first episode or one or two episodes. That's really good. And so
Mhm.
now I want to watch that, but I gotta, and
I'm like, and because of Daredevil and Wilson Fisk and all of them popping up, I'm actually going and reading like Chip Zdarsky's run of Daredevil, which reads like a fucking movie. Like the
Chip
book is-
Zdarsky.
Chip Zdarsky,
You
but
know
then like
Chip
it's
Zdarsky.
gritty, but then it also has a lot of, I don't know, it's really good. Like I'm like, why the fuck wasn't I reading this before? But then like, it's like comic books and all this other stuff. It like you say, it gets to be a bit much. So you have to like narrow down what you're going to devote time to.
Yeah.
And then like, well, I'll pick this up here and there. But like yesterday I read like 6 issues of it, and I was like, only reason I would stop because I like my eyes were starting to hurt. But
Chip Zdarsky, how do you spell that? Art star Zdarsky.
Zdarsky.
Oh, so no, just ZD, like apostrophe type of thing.
That's not even an
No
apostrophe.
pop-
It's
no
I don't
just
think there's an
Zdarsky.
Zdarsky. Okay, because the reason I asked is because we just put out our last episode today, and you guys mentioned a whole bunch of comic book writers I never heard of, and I had to like Google them all and figure out how to spell them, like Dan Stott or Don Stott,
Slot.
Dan Slott.
Dan Slott, and the other
You wanted to
guy
call him Slot.
who I forget the other guy, who you said is like a encyclopedic. Who is it? Bill
Tom Brevoort.
Tom Brevoort and his hip hop gang. All right, so let's get back.
Pretty sure he doesn't have a hip hop gang.
Artists of the guy. And I did Google these guys. Now I know what they look like. They look just like comic book writers. I
Yeah.
love it. Yeah, super hot and sexy.
Bunch of white guys with beards.
Yeah, heavy white guys with beards. Okay, 1988. We're in the hospital with Star-Lord, Peter Quill, Jason Quill, I guess is Peter
Jason Quill.
Yeah, and he's with his mom and all this, and then we jump to 26 years later, on Morag, which is an abandoned planet.
Yeah,
and he's jamming out and dancing and kicking animals, which I thought was an odd choice. Like you're supposed to like this guy.
He's kicking weird space lizards.
Yeah,
So it's less. He's kind of a dingus,
yeah, I
and
guess
he's a douche.
I just was like, yeah, he's kind of a douche, but it's like it's still an animal, kind of. Like I didn't like that about him.
Well, it might be trying to poison him. I don't know.
Or maybe
knows?
maybe they're trying to establish that these guys aren't, kind of like Tony Stark. Like they make him kind of an asshole. Like these guys are. I mean, he's out for money. He's a
Yeah, they're not
Ravager.
exactly heroes. Yeah.
yeah. So maybe that's why. And then right away he's right away jumping and go for the orb like Indiana Jones. I feel like this is Indiana Jones-ish. And Korath shows up and he says, "Are you? He says, I'm just a junker, but no, you look like a Ravager." And so I was gonna ask, but I think I've looked up all this now. But so Ravagers are this whole gang that goes with Yondu. Like Yondu's gang are the Ravagers, right? Or is it a whole another thing? It's like a gang of guys that wear red leather.
Well, as we learn in part 2, there's more to it's not just Yondu's gang. There's a whole many like there's 100 factions of Ravagers.
Oh.
And Yondu just runs one of them.
Oh, okay.
Real quick, Joe. So like when you started this part, did you remember this kind of setup from What If, except with T'Challa?
Oh no, I totally
I
totally forgot.
You had a
all
lot
about
of hope in him, Art.
Only reason because
You
when we
had
was
a lot
talking
of
about
hope in Joe.
when we was talking about that episode, we referenced this, and we like it's
Yeah.
not going to be important until we get to this part, and it totally makes sense because Joe was like, I don't get it, like whatever. And like I was just hoping that even when he sat there like earlier in the week, Joe sent us a polo saying how he was going to slather us and Bavarian jelly. I like, oh, Joe's holding on the thing. I just knew that you was going to remember this from What If.
No, I totally
Joe is not going. His
No.
retention is not. It's not high.
not there yet. Yeah, especially with What If. Like I only I really was only half watching those because those aren't where we're at. I was really trying to just
Because we're not going to quiz you on those. That's really what
well,
it is.
And
You're
I'm
not
trying
gonna
to
quiz.
I'm trying to watch in this order. So I'm trying to really study this so that when I watch it later, when I'm caught up to you guys, it should make sense to me. So now, now if I go watch that episode, it'll probably make a lot more sense.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's my point. But I did recognize during What If that he was Star-Lord because of that helmet thing, which I gotta say, I mean, I'm sure we've come farther away because this movie is 2014, so it's already 7 years old. I feel like his face mask thing is cheesy looking. Like it doesn't look
that thing is sort of a revamped version of like the original Star-Lord look. Like Star-Lord's original was created in 1976 by Steve Englehart and Steve Gann, in an issue of Marvel Preview number 4. And then the Guardians of the Galaxy, I have to go back a little bit, but it was kind of like he had this cool looking mask that was kind of his look with like the cool eyes. It was a little different. He had a whole helmet with him as well instead of just his hair out.
Well, I don't like the little thing that he turns on and it doesn't look real. Like, where does that thing go? Is it made out of holograms? Like, is it? It looks.
It's nanotech.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's technology, Joe.
It does, but it looks so.
It's crazy space technology.
Yeah, but it's not good CGI. Is what I'm saying. It's like the CGI looks shitty. Like it's.
That's interesting that bothered you because I think that's one. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't look real to me. It's like, oh, that's pretend.
I mean, newsflash, Joe.
Groot's pretend also.
It's all pretend.
Wait, this isn't a documentary?
I hate to break it to you.
Shit.
Have a seat so I can tell you the truth about a few things.
Oh, this is real.
Next, we're going to talk about Santa Claus.
All right. So I like the whole thing of this jumps right in where there's a lot of contemporary type of stuff in an outer world that you don't see a lot of in Star Wars and stuff. Where it's like Ninja Turtle, you better stop poking me. You know, he talks about dicks and a-holes is used a lot. And that's what I like about this movie is because it's like written by a bro, like bro, he calls people bro all the time, you know, like don't be a dick. You know, he says stuff like that all the time. That's funny that you don't expect, I guess, with all that pop culture 70s songs and
but like he's frozen in like the mindset of the time he was taken from.
Right.
So and so
even then his mom gave him tapes from the 70s. So that's why he likes those 70s songs.
And that's all he's got left is those tapes.
Yeah. Of his mom, which is why he's got to go back and get it that time. So and then Korath is the guy that shows up that's fighting. And right away I was like, shit, who's this guy again? And I remember asking when we saw him in, I guess, What If, where I was like, who's that guy and what's he? But so I looked up Korath on my own to see what his deal was. Korath the Pursuer was a geneticist who founded and led the Pursuer Project. He was also a member of the Star Force. He first appeared in Quasar 32, number 32, in 1992 as an agent of the Kree Empire.
Okay, Andy, you can cut the.
I know. Look at you going off your research.
Who
I
created
don't know
him?
what I just said. I don't know what any of those things.
Who created him?
Okay, this is the only one. I got a bunch of these, but this is the only one I didn't write down. I didn't copy who created him. So you have
Mark Gruenwald and Greg Capullo.
No, that's good.
There you go. Andy to your rescue.
But he used his Pursuer Project to develop cybernetic warriors for the Kree militia. So this guy's supposed to be a Kree. Like he was blue. His cartoon looks nothing like the live action guy.
Right.
He looks like Manny Faces in the cartoon. It's like pink and wears has a blue.
He's got a big he's a blue guy with a big costume on in the comics. Yeah. The Kree are mostly blue in the comics, but in the movies they've like some of them are blue, some of them are just
in the movies they're different.
Different human like colors.
Yeah.
But a lot of like
they allowed the Kree to have races besides blue. They don't all have to be
but in the comics all the Kree are blue. No,
almost all the Kree are blue. Although there's the original Captain Marvel was a white dude, and he was sort of outcast for that because he wasn't blue like all the other ones. So
the original Captain Marvel was a Kree.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
It's okay, Joe. Focus on this movie. Focus on this movie.
And his name was Marvel.
Marvel. So
Marvel Lachey.
So maybe that's where that came from. I was telling Art and Andy, TBJ, on Marco Polo, which you refused to be part of. There was a commercial. There's a commercial for the new Moon Knight
You
show.
throw it in there
During the football playoffs, and this football announcer was like, having to read the ads. He was like, "Oh, coming up, new series by Marvel. It's Moon Knight starting in March or whatever." That's Marvel comedy.
Nothing is ever going to beat back when Pat Summerall had to advertise John Leguizamo's show, House of Buggin'. That's what I remember Pat Summerall for, is having to say House of Buggin' like several times during a show.
Good God, that's worse than John Travolta trying to pronounce Idina Menzel.
Oh, that was funny.
Adele Nazim. Adele Nazim.
Adele Nazim.
With such confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. All right. So back to the show. He gets away, and we pretty kick-ass. We established that he's got guns. He's fuck this, and he starts shooting them, and he kills the Ninja Turtles, and he shoots his way out of there, and he's back in his ship, and we see Barit. And I don't know if you guys caught this, but Barit, the girl who he had forgot was there because he's a gigolo and sleeps with everybody, but she was wearing the same T-shirt as he was as a child in the beginning in 1988.
Oh, I didn't even catch that, but now that I'm thinking about it,
she's like post-coital T-shirt wearing, and it's his little baby T-shirt, the same one he was wearing. But Barit, I looked her up too, but I didn't write any of this down. But she's these red people are a certain race of people, and Barit is actually a character in a few comics that's not necessarily. I don't know if she's always with Star-Lord, but she's from the comics. I think what I love about, so I did all this research on Guardians of the Galaxy, and I'll touch on some of this, but I actually, because Art Star told me about Comixology, I have Comixology on my phone now, and this is the first thing I've ever watched in Marvel that has made me research comics, and then I went and found some of the comics that these people were in, and I tried to read whatever was free. I read the first issue of Guardians of the Galaxy from 2008 or whatever. And so I got some info from it. You're
like a full-fledged nerd sounding like.
Oh, I'm a nerd. I was reading that. I love the fact that Guardians of the Galaxy was originated. When they were writing it, they went to find like 5 or 6 guys. There was an original Guardians of the Galaxy. And I guess even that one was maybe this too. But the idea of it is to find characters that are already created in just a couple issues here and there, just out there in the Marvel world, and slap them together that don't fit together, and they're all from all these different things. Like Groot is from the 60s and from like a Tales, and then I downloaded the Groot comic and I read it, and it's awesome. It's hilarious. It's a giant tree alien, and so so I read that on Comixology.
So wait. Yeah. Are you admitting to us right now here on this podcast that you have a nerd bone?
I got a nerd boner for Guardians of the Galaxy
or something other than Art Star. That's the thing. Yeah.
Wow.
It's like I wasn't gonna
go that far.
I have a huge boner for like taking random mixes of people and slapping them together. Like, well, I mean, look at this podcast. Like, what the hell? Why
we are a random mix.
We're a random slathering of people.
We're the Guardians of the Galaxy. Actually,
we really kind of are, because
in our spare time,
I've explained to people who know us all from separate things, like, and they can't believe that the 4 of us sit down together at a podcast. It's like,
that is true. I've seen that reaction.
Yeah, so, but it's like, but I love that kind of stuff. Like, I love mix matching people. Like, I don't know what I've talked about this before. When Andy and I were kids, we would take Star Wars and GI Joes and chips, like John and Ponch, and mix all the vehicles and figures and everybody, and that was the most fun for me. Like, I love just mixing.
Your imagination is bigger than your personality, almost.
I guess.
I know his personality.
Yeah, but it's Joe's imagination surpasses his personality, I believe.
Well, he
Like,
does have a whole Joe verse, so
I
maybe.
just
Yeah,
love
some-
I love repurposing people that have been written like you wrote this character and he's only in one comic ever. Like what? Use that guy some more. Like he's just sitting there. Like use
Yeah,
him.
like Star-Lord kind of vanished for
Yeah,
years
yeah.
after like 1982, like didn't show up until 2004. The Guardians of the Galaxy themselves, the original team created in 1969, didn't do that well, and then like vanished throughout almost all the 80s, and only kind of came back because they were trying to see if they could do a space themed thing after Star Trek: The Next Generation hit, and so in 1990 they brought Guardians back, and it didn't do that well either, because the original team was it was set in like the 31st century. It barely tied into anything. It had like none of the original characters are in this movie, except a version of Yondu is. But the version
he was in the 60s Guardians of the Galaxy.
he was, but not. He wasn't a space pirate. He was kind of probably a Native American stereotype.
because he had
noble
big
savage, they called him. He had the bow and arrow and a big mohawk kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's set in the future, and there's a bunch of people from different planets who have been ravaged by this furry space lizard people called the Badoon, and they're fighting against them.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the Badoon. I have some questions about those guys at some point, but well,
And
because
the
I have
Badoon aren't even in this.
well, but
He
but I
went down a
found them
rabbit hole. That's what
because
happened.
some of these origins that I have. So
Yeah.
Yondu shows up, and we found that Yondu says something like, you should have delivered him instead of messing with him in the first place. And so that's what we kind of find out through this movie, that Yondu is the guy at the beginning when he gets abducted by aliens, was supposed to deliver him to his father. But
That's volume 2 stuff. Like
it-
that's setting up volume 2 stuff.
setting up volume 2, yeah, because I do remember a little bit of his dad being in there. But yeah, so we find
But
that
then,
out. But
well,
yeah.
real quick before you can go further down the rabbit hole.
yeah,
Like even how you're mentioning how Guardians of the Galaxy are different from this, from that. Like even in the comic books, like Peter's story is different than what we're seeing in television, in the movies.
Yeah.
Like, in this,
Yeah.
without, you're going to forget it anyway, Joe. But in this, it's like, we find out that he's half human, half celestial. Whereas in the comics, his dad is not the dad that we hear about in volume 2. His dad is someone totally different. And so it's like, and it's just one of the things where it's like, you're saying like how everyone's from here. It's like, this is Marvel, and DC's doing it too. Marvel, like they've created universes that exist outside of other universes. So it's like how they destroyed canon and got rid of like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and things like that, where it's like something that happens in the MCU that kind of pulling from the comic storyline could also at some point pop up now that we have in the multitude of the multiverse kind of thing going on. You know what I mean?
yeah. And I was gonna say, like, it seems like some of the things they've changed. I have a feeling, and maybe this is wrong, but I get the sense that with these characters specifically, they sort of grabbed these from comics nobody cared about. Like nobody cared about Star-Lord till they did this, right?
Yeah,
So
Star-Lord was gone for. I mean, some of them like
nobody
Drax
cares
and
what you do,
Gamora. Drax
right?
and Gamora were in really like famous Thanos stories, but they weren't really so much main characters, and they kind of like for a long time they hadn't really been used much. There was a big period of time where Cosmic Marvel, which was like really big in like the 70s, especially like as people were,
The
acid
star
tripping out and
stuff,
doing
yeah.
crazy stuff and exploring other worlds. Cosmic stuff kind of fell out of favor for a while, but then around 2004-ish, when like the main comics were doing like the Civil War and like a lot of stuff that was really controversial and was turning a lot of nerds off at the time. This
nerd boners were going.
yeah, some nerd boners were getting real excited, and other ones were just going, "Man, this is all the heroes are turning into dicks. I don't like any of this." Then they decided to revitalize the Cosmic Marvel with Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning.
Annihilation.
That is saying with the Annihilation event.
So Annihilation, I was going to ask you about this because I went to go buy those and read them. But
Mhm.
I don't know what to buy. Do I have to buy all six?
It was set up really weird. There was like a Annihilation beginning issue, and then there were 4 limited series. I think it was Ronin had a series, Silver Surfer, Nova, and Super Skrull, I think.
And so when you're saying series, it's not just one book. Like each one.
But see, that's the thing, Joe. When you're reading these books like this,
Yeah.
like I don't use comicsology that much anymore. But like, let's say if you have like Marvel, if you try Marvel will sit there and it'll be like, okay, well, this is Civil. I mean, when Marvel did Civil War, I was, still getting comic books, and I'm like, I'll never get all of this shit because it's like every week it was like 12 books came out, but then you have like you have the main book. But the way that they write these stories, you can read just the main book, and like the other ones, they like they'll kind of reference them in the main storyline, but then it's also like for this story, see Iron Man such and such, or Spider-Man Prelude, whatever. So like you read like Annihilation, all of the main series, but then you also like these other little books. If you like, oh, I kind of like this character, it gives you option. I like this character. Let me go grab his series and start reading his series. Then I like this other character. I'm gonna read his series. It'll tie in. It's basically like they're complete tie-ins. Whereas like in television now they do like the crossover events. Whereas like this is one main story, but everybody boom boom. In comic books, it's like it's a crossover event, but there's one main thread that you can read. Yeah. And then if it's like you want to read, sometimes they'll say like this is the reading order, you should read it and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But then you don't necessarily have to do it because like nowadays they do make series where like there's only like 6 issues. Or there's like 5 issues, but like
that's what I was going to ask.
If you try to read everything,
that's
you'll
what I
probably
was
read
like
50 books.
Each one's of this Annihilation event, you're saying it's like this, and this.
Annihilation was set up differently. It was normally here's the Civil War 6-issue series, and then 100 books tie into it because they're trying to boost sales for everybody. Like one main thing that they're hyping, everyone else gets a tie-in, and they kind of offshoot stories. Annihilation, I remember at the time because I was really excited about it because I loved these books when they came out, and which is why I was very excited for a Guardians of the Galaxy movie because like how are they going to do this? Like they did the Alien Invasion and Avengers, and they made Thor work barely, but they did. And so this was just basically, all right, we did the Avengers, we did our phase 1, and now we can throw the door wide open and just have fun with the Guardians of the Galaxy. No one really cares about these characters that much.
Yeah, I guess that was the original point, is that nobody cares if you fuck with Star-Lord because nobody's a Star-Lord fan because he was some guy from that 1979 comic once and nobody likes it. So you can change it. And it's not going to hurt nerds' feelings.
And that was part of the comics idea too. It's like these are a bunch of cosmic people that we haven't really been seen in almost a decade or more. So let's kind of revamp their looks, revamp their attitudes. Let's bring them into the modern era of storytelling, and give these nerds who are sick of the Civil War shit that's not turning them on, giving them something to focus on. For me, it was like I didn't really like the Civil War comics and the Secret Invasion stuff that was going on. So, but when this came out, I was like, yes, I don't know any of these characters, and this is a lot of fun, and it's great. And then there's a raccoon and there's a tree. This is great.
It's cool to learn about
a raccoon.
And Annihilation was set up weirdly.
What's a raccoon?
Annihilation had I think an opening couple of issues or so, and then it split into 4 miniseries for solo characters involved. Right. You could read each of those to get a thing, and then it kind of came back together in an Annihilation.
Oh, I like that
end thing. And they did a sequel to it called Conquest that involves Ultron. But
that's what I was trying to figure out, because when I did get the Guardians of the Galaxy issue 1 or whatever was free,
and that's
reading that.
That's right after.
It's right after. So I was kind of annoyed because I was like, they're already together. They know each other. I love the origin story. Like I wanted to read to see if the origin story is similar to the movie or what's different or what. And so that must have all been an Annihilation.
Yeah. Star-Lord had a 4-issue series, I think. And he had a whole different look, but he still had the cool eye things on it. Like the mask was still kind of the same.
Yeah.
And usually he just wore that all the time. You didn't really see.
Yeah, I
his head
like the mask. I just don't like the technology of it disappearing,
appearing and disappearing. Yeah.
Such a
Well,
technology.
I like that technology. Just the animation looks fake and stupid. Like I would
Just
like if they
didn't
made it
work
look
for you.
cool. It just looked like it was not real. Like if they can make it look cool and real, maybe I would like it. But I don't know. That was maybe my complaint. Maybe I'm used to what they've. I feel like they've come a long way now. Like movies now are even better. So maybe that's all right. Back to the movie. Yondu. Can we get back in with when Yondu shows up? Yondu Udanta. Let's see. I had that the original version of him was you were saying it was like a Native American stereotype. He was supposed to be the last survivor of a species, a Centaurian.
Yeah, from Centaur 4. Yeah, there's the original Guardians were a lot of last survivors of species.
Yeah, Gamora is the last of her species also, I found.
Yeah, but Gamora wasn't even Gamora wasn't in the original team.
Oh, okay.
There was like a crystal guy from Pluto named Martinex. There was like a burly, short, maybe android guy from Jupiter named Charlie 27. And there was a purple lady from Mercury named just Nikki. And there was this guy Vance Astro, who was a 20th century astronaut frozen for 1,000 years.
Wait, do we ever get those guys? Who was that mix of people that you wanted to see that we kept talking about that you were hoping to introduce? One's a tiger guy, one's an ape guy.
Andy wanted to introduce.
Yeah,
us?
And, are you talking about the Agents of Atlas?
Yes.
That's that I hoped would show up in the Shang-Chi movie.
Yeah, it never happened, right?
Sequel. Yeah, not yet, at least.
Okay.
Andy still has hope.
There's a Gorilla Man, and there's M11, the human robot.
I'm about to open a beer from our new sponsor from Birdsong Brewing, Hazy Sexy Cool IPA. Hazy Sexy Cool. That's not a sponsor, but maybe they will. If
I'm about to say,
I'm about to eat some soup made by my wife.
If I show them that, if I play this recording and say, "Look, I mentioned your beer, give us $100,000 an episode."
I don't think that's how it works.
You have to. I mentioned your beer. You have to give us money now.
Like I need to hear the cha-ching every time I hear your say your beer's name.
Art, should we be concerned about Art?
Did he just run away?
He disappeared.
I think
there
so. He's sick of our bullshit.
I thought, was he offended by something, or is he having a medical?
I said,
I don't know what he's doing.
Y'all and the galaxy discussion with all the other side characters. He just peaced out. He didn't even say, "Hold on." He didn't say.
Maybe he's got some sound issues. Can you hear us, Art?
Did you get offended?
I can. My bad.
Were you mad at us?
You just left.
No.
Was there a lady in the other room? A lady you
shit?
forgot was there?
Like,
I went to go get some. My throat was getting dry. I went to go get some more. You know, when I mute, I had to turn the thing off. I thought I hit the mute and not turned the camera off. So that was weird.
I don't think you turned the camera off. We saw your camera. We just didn't see you.
Oh, okay.
I always trying to make sure you weren't upset.
I disrupted you.
We didn't want any diva tantrums.
From who?
From you.
I don't have diva in me.
Okay.
Okay. Now we're at the Dark Aster Kree warship, and we see Ronan kills a guy from Xandar. And I was going to say, what's Xandar?
Xandar is
capital of the Nova Empire, but
yeah, in comics, the Nova Corps is basically like the Green Lantern Corps in DC Comics, except they're more yellow and blue, but they all have like these power suits, and they fly around being policemen, which is incidentally what Star-Lord kind of started out as, was an intergalactic policeman. That Star-Lord is the name, it was originally the title of these interplanetary cops that he became one of.
They were all Star-Lords?
There were more than one Star-Lord, I would imagine. But it was and then so they revamped it, so it became his mother's little nickname for him. But the Nova Corps was originally like these superpowered dudes, and there was the main one that they introduced was a guy named Richard Rider.
Yes, which I did a bunch of research on Richard Rider, and then I see that he's related to the John C. Reilly character in the comics.
Can I just say I love John C. Reilly as an actor?
Oh, I love John C. Reilly. Do you ever see Step Brothers?
Yeah, I've seen literally everything he has ever done. And my favorite is when he's playing sad John C. Reilly and over the top funny John C. Reilly.
I just started watching when Marnie was
Chicago and Walk Hard.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Art.
Oh my God.
I just started watching when Marnie was here, and he voices one of the characters, and that's a Studio Ghibli anime.
He's so good. I think people forget about him because there's a couple films where he plays second chair to like Will Ferrell, but John C. Reilly is a freaking. I got excited when I saw him in here.
Yeah,
and I was like,
I forgot all about it.
In a Marvel movie, John C. Reilly,
and
you better get that Marvel money. You better get a Marvel check.
Did you ever seen Stephen Brule?
No.
Dr. Steve Brule.
Dr. Steve Brule on Adult Swim. You got to Google that, TBJ. Write this down for after the podcast.
It's absolutely stupid fun.
Yeah, I don't.
Weird.
It doesn't seem like.
Well, if you said Adult Swim, I can only imagine.
I don't. It doesn't seem like your type of thing. Which
probably
definitely not a type of thing.
Probably not.
It's hilarious.
I don't think there's anything on Adult Swim that's ever been like my yes.
Your jam. Oh shit, there was something else I was going to say. Oh yeah, so the character I googled the character he plays. Even I think that's what I love about this movie too. Is like every single character, even little minor parts were, like some extensive character somewhere that nobody's ever used or whatever. It's like they use. I love it. Marvel's doing more and more of that. But this guy, so he gives his powers, like his wife and daughter die, and he's upset, and so he wants revenge on the guy that killed him. So he gets mutilated, and he gives his powers to this Ryder guy who becomes Nova. Episode, issue 1 of Nova, 1970 or 85 or something.
Yeah, and he was, and at some point during the Annihilation storyline, what happens, like the Nova Corps is all sort of governed, or like they get their powers, they share like a hive mind called the World Mind. There's like a central like master computer that kind of monitors things and dispatches them to where they need to go. Then it also like powers all their power suits and gives them their ability, their Green Lantern-esque sort of abilities.
Okay.
I mean, they don't really make constructs or anything, but they have their space cops with powers. And then somewhere during that storyline, Xandar, like the Nova Corps, gets wiped out by the Annihilation Wave, and like almost everybody, like Richard Rider is the last one. He managed to survive, so he has a contact, like through their helmets they can contact the World Mind. So now there are no other Novas, so he has all the powers of every Nova. So he's like exponentially more powerful, and becomes real, like, and he needs to be, because the Annihilation Wave is tearing through everything.
Gotcha.
Just trying to wipe out the entire.
So they did change
universe.
his story. Like in this, his wife and daughter don't die, but they have his wife and daughter in there.
Right.
They almost get killed. You see them, and then he's got them at the end.
And Richard Rider, we haven't even seen yet. We haven't seen any of the canonical comic book Novas.
Do we think we're going to? Is there rumors of that?
There might be. I mean, Xandar has been wiped.
Was Supernova, right?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah,
I mean,
Supernova is a guy too. That guy, that Saul. Yeah, I read that. I couldn't believe it. I was like, that guy becomes Supernova. I was going to ask you, who's Supernova and what's that? That has to do with Nova and Supernova, or?
Yeah, I don't know a lot about Supernova. I didn't go deep.
Well, the
into
Supernova, they're part of they're like, I guess what you would call like Black Ops team in the Nova Corps.
Okay.
Kind of thing.
And then more recently,
did you say
just the way that they say again?
Did you say Black Ops?
Yeah, Black Ops.
Oh, Black Ops. So Supernova.
They probably get sent out to do the shit that they don't send everyone else to do. He's
gotcha.
Like, most Black Ops teams are like I don't want to say big douchebags, but they got a little douchebaggery in them. And you see in this how he has a little douchebaggery in him. Where it's just like, but that's not for them. He like, but like even at the deleted scene they had with him and John C. Reilly, he was like, "Are you sure you want to send them there? Like the people, like we don't have the prison space to house them. Send them to the kiln." He like fucking make criminals. Let's get rid of these motherfuckers.
Yeah,
he like no compassion. Where John C. Reilly's like,
he's kind of a good guy. Yeah,
right.
So I've been taking a look at, because I've been trying to write a script. So I've been looking at the Dan Harmon's story circle thing.
Yeah.
I've been trying to like apply that to things as I'm reading it. So I couldn't help but apply this here. But I was just looking at this next little bit, and how I love that all their motives line up so cool to make such a cool movie. That like Ronan wants Xandar destroyed, Thanos wants the orb, so he's got to get the orb to Thanos, destroy Xandar. The broker wants the orb for his guy, the collector. Star-Lord wants the cash for the orb. Rocket and Groot want reward money to get Star-Lord, and then Gamora wants to do good things and get the orb. So it's like everybody's motives like align and intertwine and match, like to just create this movie of like everybody wants something out of it, slightly different things, but it all leads to a giant battle, which is great. Like there's so many times that just these battles just show up, like, oh shit, like when Ronan shows up because Drax called him, but then Yondu shows up too. It's like, oh fuck him too. Jeez, this is a big old fight. So anyway, so then we see Gamora and Nebula, and that they are basically hired to help Ronan get the orb. And so I looked up Gamora and Nebula. Gamora, created by writer-artist Jim Starlin.
Yep, who is a huge cosmic Marvel creator.
He's a big
Jim Starlin guy. Created Thanos. He created Drax.
This character first appeared in Strange Tales number 180 in June 1975. Gamora, the adopted daughter of Thanos, and Gamora is the last of her species, the Zen-Huberis. Is that how you say it? They were exterminated by the Badoon. And I looked up and found out that Kang is a Badoon. Kang is a Badoon. I'm dropping knowledge. Don't try to take my knowledge.
Uh-oh.
Kang is a Badoon.
You're trying to research.
Well, to be fair, there's Kang. There can be. There's a shit ton of Kangs from all sorts of alternate timelines. There's the Council of Kang. Yeah.
We talked about this, Joe.
We explained this to you, and and you don't retain. I mean,
this is proof.
I was drinking
a long conversation.
You want to know how big Marvel is? Joe, Marvel is huge.
Marvel
huge.
Or Marvel?
They're huge. Yeah. But like even now, like how Kang is kind of popular again or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like Marvel has like he's been in like there are new storylines in the comics dealing with Kang. So it's like,
how come sometimes you say whatever, but sometimes it's just one whatever? You said Kang is popular or whatever.
Or whatever.
But you didn't say whatever. So whatever is more dismissing.
Right.
Whatever is like, just. I may be with it. Sorry. Back to Andy's dismissing of my Kang Badoon discovery.
That's what Andy does. Do not mess with Andy's shit.
I know, I'm learning your pain, Artstar. But Kang is a Badoon, it said, according to Wikipedia or the Marvel Cine Wiki or something. One of those is where I saw that. So that's not. Are you looking to see which one?
There's a bunch of different incarnations of Kang, and especially a lot of different timelines. So, I mean, I think Kang is big on taking over, like managing to manipulate armies to do his conquering. So I would not be surprised if Kang is able to,
a Badoon.
Or he might not actually be a Badoon, but he like could take control of their army.
Maybe when the Badoon exterminated the Zen-Huberis. What am I talking about? Maybe Kang was involved in that episode or something. Anyway, then Nebula was created by Roger Stern and John Buscema.
You know what? There are Badoon named Frickin' Frack.
There is?
Yeah.
The origin story of Frickin' Frack.
Yeah, there's a big list of Badoon here. But Kang is not on that.
Do Badoons use bidets?
No, they're gross. They're gross space lizards. And they're also like extremely they have strict gender segregation. Like all the women live on another planet, and then when it's like every, I don't know,
Yeah, there's a
Mating
case to be
season,
made
let's
for that.
go.
Every mating cycle is just vicious
Listen,
and brutal because
women
they
would
hate
not
each other.
argue with this.
No, I'm saying as an art star, we're thinking about getting an apartment together and have all the women on another planet. I don't know.
No, you said they were all going to Tupperware parties, right?
Which is highly offensive. We have more
First off-
fascinating things than Tupperware parties.
Tupperware is
Just-
very fascinating.
Disclaimer
It
here:
is.
Joe
I'm a
and
Tupperware
I are
fan.
not sexist.
No, we are not. We are both feminists. I don't know if art's a feminist. I'm
Not
a
necessarily
feminist.
good feminists,
There you go, Andy. There you
but-
go.
perhaps. but
Feminists with lots of room to grow.
Nebula first appeared in the Avengers number 257 in. Anybody want to
1985.
guess what year? Oh, July 1985. Yeah.
He already said, I don't know why you were going to ask someone to guess knowing Andy was going to give you the answer, Joe.
Yeah, of course. Why did I even bother?
I mean,
Andy's a
good
nerd.
job. I'm really proud of you going out here and doing all this research.
I got
and
some research. A little
schooling
bit.
us.
That's all the time we have. We'll have to resume this conversation on the next episode. Peace out, Nerd Hive.
They say I can't rap about the president no more, but evidently they don't see we in the streets still poor. Still more incarceration of my kinsmen by the prisons, and people thinking this election to end in racism. Proud over pessimism, glad to see Obama, but don't expect me not to speak out when I still see problems.
The Nerd School Podcast.
Nerd Skool is a member of the Queen City Podcast Network.
Listen, people can make fun of me for my holiday movies all we want to, but I'm like, are you alive? Did I fuss at you today? Did I yell about anything? All right, then. You're welcome. You better thank Hallmark for keeping me safe.